More than 1,200 canines were on their best behaviour for the two-day show, all vying for the prized blue ribbon. Split into 7 categories depending on their breed, the dogs were judged on their size and shape and overall appearance. Many of the pooches were being treated more like people in preparation for their turn in the ring. And why not? For every dog they beat, they're awarded a point. And the more points they get, the better chance they have of competing in the Australian titles. The most popular dog in the show was by far the Golden Retriever. The rare Shar-Pei, a Chinese breed, also made an appearance.
The grand final came down to the 2 Newcastle Association teams. Newcastle won in the cream bibs and Newcastle 2 in the blue. Goal attack Jodie Hoare and shooting partner Kelly Wolven had far too much experience for their younger counterparts, bagging goals from all over the circle. The rain made the court surface fairly slippery, but it didn't seem to bother either side as they moved the ball around. The final was also a test of marital bliss for Bruce and Mary Ann Linky. Bruce coaches the number 2s while wife Mary Ann has charge of the number 1s. We're not sure if they had an insight into each other's game plans, but Mary Ann's team had the better run of play in the second half and just scraped home.
The judiciary turned up to Newcastle Leagues Club expecting a busy night, having 3 players up for hearing. However, the workload was quickly lightened, with word that South's prop Simon Cook wasn't appearing. South President John Fleming announced the absence of Cook, who was sent off during Sunday's semi-final against Waratah Mayfield for abusing referee Paul Lovett, seen here wearing a white and maroon jacket. Until Cook fronts the judiciary, he stood down. South's prop Michael Varnum also appeared before the judiciary following an incident in the game against Central on July 31st. Varnum was cited by the League's disciplinary committee for headbutting. However, last night the judiciary, consisting of Clem Rankin, Chairman Col Elliott and Kevin Schott, dismissed the case, adding it couldn't be sure Varnum had deliberately struck another player. Toronto captain coach Mal Graham, wearing the pattern shirt, presented his case himself. First, the incident in which Graham was reported for a high tackle against West 5'8" Steve Story on August 1st was viewed. Graham then pleaded guilty to recklessly attacking Story's head. He was suspended for 3 premiership matches next season. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
During the past decade, Shortland Wetland Centre has become home to a long list of different bird species. Today, details were announced for the centre's next project, with BHP's Rod and Bar division contributing $27,000 toward a program to breed the endangered freckled duck. The waterfowl have a unique historical link with establishment of the Wetland Centre.
Freckled duck was the largest count in coastal New South Wales in the census after the long period of drought in 1983, and they were using the Shortland wetlands as a drought refuge, and we were able to use that information to indicate how important the program for the Wetland Centre was going to be.
17 ducks comprising 11 males and 6 females had been used for a CSIRO project, but the transfer to Shortland will now allow the waterfowl to breed in captivity, with the Wetland Centre releasing their offspring into the wild.
They've been in Australia for a very, very long time. They are anatomically different to quite a lot of other species, but not only that, they have a rather fragile life cycle. There can be quite large numbers of them in inland wetlands when they're wet, but as you know, lots of the inland wetlands are only wet for short periods of time. They breed prolifically during that time. They can't breed when there's no wetlands.
As the project begins, the Wetland Centre is now looking at its needs for a new building, with research work and interest in wetlands placing huge demands on existing resources. 36-year-old Jennifer Woolsey has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of her husband at their Rutherford home last year, claiming provocation. Newcastle Supreme Court today heard details of what happened on the night of the stabbing, including the woman's frantic call to the ambulance service for help.
And what's happened to John?
I just stabbed him.
Pardon?
I just stabbed him.
You just what? Stabbed him?
Stabbed him.
A video interview by police with Jennifer Woolsey describing the incident was also shown.
Oh, because it was just, John said something. Later on, 20 minutes later, I was out in the kitchen, got the knife. He said, go on, do it. I must have did it.
During today's proceedings, the court was given an insight into what would happen to Jennifer Woolsey's 3 children if she were to be sentenced to jail. Mr Justice Newman being told that no suitable arrangements had yet been made for their care. The case has been adjourned until Thursday to allow a social worker to assess the woman and her children in their home environment. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The private company called Brew Your Own has given new meaning to the concept of making your own beer. Instead of backyard brewing, in future people will be able to make their beer here. They can choose a recipe, mix the ingredients and leave the difficult process of fermentation to owner Tom Salter.
There would be a lot less time, a lot less mess, a lot more guarantee of having a good brew.
Last night, Council gave the company the green light to set up shop in Hamilton. It's a decision which the Australian Hotels Association has strongly opposed. Secretary Chris Chapman says the Brew Your Own company has an unfair financial advantage because home brewing doesn't attract a government tax.
We are forced to operate under a very rigorous set of guidelines, rules and regulations, and a taxation system that has seen many of our members go into bankruptcy in the last 12 months.
Owner Tom Salter says he would pay tax, but the government doesn't require him to do so.
The only way open to them now is to go back to the governments and try and get legislation passed that all home brewers pay tax. I think they'll have a hard time doing it.
I think Australians are a lot like Texans, the independence, the friendliness. We've really enjoyed our trip.
The Hunter is no stranger to hosting and sending its delegates on sister city exchanges. A notable exception from this gathering at City Hall, Newcastle Lord Mayor John McNaughton, presently visiting Newcastle's sister city Ube in Japan. The delegates have rolled in from all around Australia to promote not only the hand of friendship over the seas, but also associations between our own cities.
The Newcastle region is seen as one of the really strong areas and one of the areas that are achieving things within the Sister City movement, and they're quite happy to come up and see what we're doing and probably get a few pointers for the rest of Australia.
Local government delegates often get their share of flack when heading overseas at ratepayers' expense on any number of cultural or trade missions. Information exchanged varies from the likes of glass lead lighting to judo, coal exports, computers and commerce. Newcastle Deputy Lord Mayor Frank Rigby, a veteran of the occasional sister city visit, defends the practice.
The movement is about peace and goodwill among countries. Now, whatever that, whether that be trade or churches or schools or whatever you can imagine, that's what we want to do, so that we've got a good thing going with the governments and we have a good thing going with the industries. What we want to do is get people to people.
The health of the world has improved more since the 1950s than ever before, according to an international report by the World Bank. Author Professor Richard Feacham was speaking in Newcastle about the health findings. He says the only region where people's life expectancy has dropped is the former communist belt of Central and Eastern Europe.
About half of the problem is in the well-known risk factors: tobacco, alcohol, obesity, diet, unsafe workplaces, things of that kind. But the remaining half is a mystery.
Professor Feacham says countries worldwide are grappling with how to organise and finance their health services. He says Australia, together with Canada and Holland, provide excellent role models.
The Stewart Centre at Lake Macquarie is celebrating 10 years of working with children with cerebral palsy. Today, with some of the 160 youngsters who utilise its facilities looking on, 3-year-old Nicholas opened a new way for the future. It's called a sensory trail, a pathway built by members from nearby Charlestown TAFE to give the Stewart Centre students a test track for their wheelchairs or walking frames. They feel timber and concrete pathways, ride over bridges, smell the flowers and the dirt. From here they learn to fit in with conditions outside the centre.
We're now expecting that children with disabilities will be out there in the community. 10 years ago they went to perhaps just special schools and at home.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
As Black Stunner, Shemin Defer takes the lead with 150 metres left to go. Silver Neon rattling home down the outside, and so is Palace Rain. Shemin Defer being tackled by Silver Neon, who's going home the better. Silver Neon hit the front. Silver Neon has won it. Silver Neon has won. Close for second.
6, 2 and 10. Silver Neon paid $6.50 and $2.10. The Quinella $18.10 and the Trifecta $238.70.
It was found lying on Torquay Beach west of Melbourne early this morning. Leopard seals only venture inshore if they're extremely ill. Rescuers had to shield themselves from the seal's powerful jaws as they coaxed it towards the cage. Once on board, it was off to Melbourne Zoo and a checkup by the vet. Zoo staff hope the seal will recover so it can be released back into the wild.
The Falcons knew it was going to be one of the toughest games of the year. Terry Dozier and Paul Kuiper led the charge, proving just about unstoppable. Paul Kuiper missed only 2 shots for the whole game, and he loved the feeling. Dozier was all over the court. If he wasn't lobbing in 3-pointers, he was chasing down a loose ball or pressuring for a turnover. Dozier's enthusiasm was infectious. Al Green bagged himself a few 3-pointers, and Grant Kruger doubled his scoring average. The Kings tried everything in the dying minutes, but the Falcons were just more determined to finish winners. Both sides knew the most aggressive team would probably win. Peter Jenner found that plenty of hands made light work, and he basically only had to fall over the line. Paul Romanik found brute force was more his style than fancy hands. Curry may have been behind at the start of the second half, but you would never have known. They made West tackle their hearts out for a good 10 minutes before they finally found the gap. Brendan Dooley didn't get to see much more of his side's performance. He was sent off after turning Greg Price's lights out. Not long after, a swinging arm from Glenn Miller reignited the tension, and it was all on again. The former Knight could also face the judiciary after an incident in back play that has Scott Bradley booking an appointment with his chiropractor. West preferred to let their feet handle the action and ran in a length of the field try that started from absolutely nothing. And at Carl Oval last night, Lakes surprised Waratah with their enthusiasm. 2 minutes later, Craig Kimmerley broke the defence again and was making it look like easy work. The Seagull forwards weren't afraid of the hard work and outclassed the more fancied Waratah pack. The Cheetahs' only spark came from Gary Fairhurst with a great sprint to the line. Lakes showed last night that they can make the best of any opportunity and punish a side for a simple mistake. In lower grades, South's reserves are through to the final, along with West's in 3rd grade.
Hunter Electricity, based at Patterson near Maitland, took on the job last year to build power lines from Broken Hill north to the Queensland border. It was a $15 million contract with the state government, employing about 30 workers. But according to Hunter Electricity boss Alan Dunlop, the job stopped when the government would not pay nearly $2 million in extra expenses. The government denied it owed any extra money. A standoff followed, and Energy Minister West called in accountants Price Waterhouse and expert legal advice to see if the company was buoyant enough to complete the work. The minister said that based on this advice, it was obvious to him that Hunter Electricity could not finish the project without a massive injection of funds. Mr West said he would not use taxpayers' money to prop up the company. Today, Alan Dunlop said he would fight the move, but admitted positions would have to be reviewed within the company. The government will put new workers onto the project.
The existing children's section is housed in the original part of the hospital, built in 1940. 28 beds in a rather sombre, outdated ward.
It has very limited play area. It has no facilities, living facilities for parents. It has very limited isolation facilities.
In less than 3 weeks, this ward will close and patients will be admitted to a refurbished area. Tradesmen are working furiously to finish the job. $1.1 million is being spent on a larger wing, 39 beds, a special isolation area for children with infectious diseases, an indoor and outdoor play area for kids, and there'll be accommodation for mums and dads who don't want to leave their children alone in hospital.
It's very user-friendly. It will enhance the recovery of children, we believe, by a nice atmosphere with plenty of opportunities for the parents to be with their children in comfort.
The community has raised funds for furnishings and equipment. The ward will be officially opened by the Health Minister on the 23rd of September.
A quick glance down Curry's main street and the tricolours are everywhere, swinging from street posts and plastered across shop windows. The town's bakers are once again adding their traditional support with coloured loaves of bread and cakes. The hot bread shop sold out of red and white and blue loaves by 8 o'clock this morning and took orders for at least another 100 tomorrow. Cake shops have been swamped with requests for decorated niceties, and the credit union is giving something back to eager fans with every deposit. Even the florists are run off their feet, supplying hundreds of curry bunches. A convoy of 10 buses will take people to the game on Sunday, so the depth of support isn't lost on the players.
It'll be public holiday Monday up there and probably 3 or 4 days on the drink.
Glenn Miller is the team's unofficial leader in the forwards, and he's making sure the same faults aren't repeated that cost Curry the semi-final against Wests a few weeks ago.
We'll play them different to what we did last time. I think we played them wrong in the last semi. Other than that, I think it'll be very hard, very close.
Wests make no secret that they must contain Steve Linnane and try-scoring sensation Brian Quinton if they're to win.
There's always two sides to a story like this. If you shut one down, there's always something else open.
And if Curry do win on Sunday, you can guarantee the town will erupt into its biggest party for years. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
Window on the Wetlands is a computer program designed to inform users all about Australian wetlands. The package will be available for schools to use, allowing a little bit of nature to step inside the classroom with just the touch of a finger. The program was launched at the Shortland Wetlands Centre, part of an environmental resource expo designed for teachers to find out about the latest publications in environmental education.
They get so much information thrust at them from so many different areas all the time, and just to be able to focus on one thing in one place, I think, is an advantage.
Landing on the wrong side of the law was probably the best thing that ever happened to Craig Anderson.
And then I got caught by the police one day, and then they asked me, have I ever thought about racing? Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
His career has progressed in leaps and bounds since that day. This year he was snatched up by Yamaha as one of only 3 Australians on the Motorcycle Giants books. The company sent him to Indonesia in June to compete in an open men's event. In front of a crowd of 35,000 people and racing against riders twice his age, Craig relished his first crack at the big boys.
I won the whole 3 races, but they took 1 lap off me, so because I crashed next to a jump and I got up and I didn't turn around and go back over it. So they took 1 lap off me and I ended up second overall, but I was the fastest out of all of them.
However, the gain has not been without pain. Craig suffered a fractured pelvis, he's broken an arm, leg and both his thumbs, and has also dislocated his foot.
No, not at all. I've had a few friends that's broke their neck, and no, that don't worry me at all.
Craig will go to Indonesia again next month for another men's competition. Yamaha is grooming him to enter the rich American pro circuit early next year after finishing his school certificate this year.
A shark in the lake comes as no surprise to fishermen and old-timers. To them, the sharks are regular visitors to the shallow waters, chasing school tailor and mullet.
The lake has sharks in it, always has, always will. Well, they've got Swansea Channel as large as it is.
But when school finished this afternoon, this hammerhead, estimated to weigh between 80 to 100 kilos, was a source of fascination to many youngsters. The shark was caught in hauling nets off the Araring Power Station warm water outlet at Myuna Bay, where fishermen Pat Bridge, Dave Mitchell and Wally Kent say it had been chasing tailor. Fishermen often find their nets holed and have occasionally also caught bronze whaler sharks in the lake, usually in the warmer summer months.
No, I've caught them up to 16 feet in this lake.
The second placing was no easy feat, considering Catherine was competing against 24 of Sydney's top aerobics exponents.
It was a bit of a surprise. I wasn't really expecting it because there's a lot of girls from down Sydney who have personal trainers and other champions training them. So I was very pleased that I got that far.
What made it even more satisfying for Catherine was that she was the only entrant to choreograph her own routine. However, she admits that the permanent smile on her face during the routine is not altogether for real.
Oh no, not really. It's pretty hard to smile and do some of that at the same time. So you've got to practice smiling too. You don't just do it on the day, you practice it along with your routine every time.
Today, Catherine was back into the swing of her weekly routine as a fitness instructor. She plans to return to the New South Wales Championships next year and tackle the open section.
As soon as the Curry first grade squad walked into the club, they were mobbed by enthusiastic fans. Everyone wanted their commemorative T-shirts signed. And after an hour, most of the team looked to have writer's cramp. The crowd bought up hundreds of shirts, some to wear to the game on Sunday, others to keep as unstained souvenirs. Finally, the squad managed to find a quiet moment and tucked into a traditional steak and chips. No such diets out western suburbs way. Coach Neil Baker wants his players to be hungry for Sunday's game. Despite breaking his jaw only 5 weeks ago, Baker hasn't completely ruled out a return and insists he has a surprise player on the bench. Even if Baker doesn't take the field, he will know just how to hand out the advice in the change rooms.
Leading by example, mate. Everyone's going with you. Everyone's going well. And good off-plays. Tidy those short balls are perfect.
Both teams can be seen again at tomorrow's grand final public breakfast at the Newcastle Leagues Club. The Falcons' determination was obvious from the start. Terry Dozier and Everett Stevens didn't want to waste a chance. For the first time this year, Grant Kruger played the entire first quarter without a foul against him. In fact, he drew half a dozen. Simon O'Donnell had confidence to burn and consistently blocked out the Rollers' big guns. The Falcons' defence was intense. At one point, their marking was so strong, they forced the Gold Coast to blow the shot clock, resulting in a turnover. Mike Mitchell reminded them, though, that any lapses proved costly. With 40 seconds to go, the scores were locked until Everett Stevens drew a foul and easily made the 2 points. Now there were only seconds left and a three-pointer could have won the game, but the Falcons' defence stayed firm. A narrow margin, but it could have been by 100 if the players' reaction was anything to go by. Although tomorrow is basically Curry and West Day, representatives of all the clubs made the effort to come to this morning's feast. Some of the game's current and former stars swapped stories and anecdotes about their grand final appearances. The more experienced players from Curry and West trying to make sure the hype doesn't affect the younger members of their squads. As soon as the formalities were over, Steve Linnane took his side to check out number 1 Sports Ground. It's the first time the Bulldogs have had a chance to step through the layout. The verdict? Both sides want to play on a dry ground.
A massive crowd filled the stadium at Verge Street number 1 Oval for the showdown yesterday afternoon. The Kempsey Cannonballs, wearing the orange shirts, were defending premiers and were keen to win back-to-back titles, but the Port Macquarie Pirates had other ideas. The first half of the game was a tough and entertaining affair, with both teams attempting to gain the upper hand without success. As the second half wore on, it looked like neither team would score a point. However, with 10 minutes to go, the floodgates opened. This try from breakaway Steve Dobbins sealed the match for the Cannonballs. The Pirates scored their only points of the game with this unconverted try. Fullback Johnny Shea was named man of the match for his outstanding kicking and defensive game. It was a double-header for Kempsey, with the side winning their grand final against Dorrigo 16-6. Last night, a spectacular fireworks and laser show was held in the canal at the front of the new club. The half-hour bonanza drew thousands to witness the first ever laser show in Port Macquarie. The celebrations continued today with the launch of the Windward Passage Bar. The bar is the mould used in the actual creation of the yacht, which won the 1988 World Championships in Hawaii. The yacht's original owner, Rob Muir, today christened the new attraction. Organisers of the weekend's activities are pleased with the support they received.
And we're delighted, we're ecstatic about how it's gone. The general public and the community of Port Macquarie have shown enormous support. We hope we've been able to repay them for their patience over the years, and we just couldn't be happier.